Hello, 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 beautiful people. This is LA Roberts coming to you with yet another episode of Conversations with Greatness. And today I have the privilege of having none other than Mr. Trey McLaughlin. If you do not know who Trey McLaughlin is, you are missing out on a complete and utter treat. He is absolutely amazing in everything that he does, internationally known. And let me just read a little bit about him so you'll know exactly how important this is and how special he is. So, sorry, I forgot to tell you who I am. If you have been following me for any time at all, you know that I am an international best-selling author, inspirationalist, motivational speaker, all of the above. But we're not here for me, we're here for Trey. So let's talk about Trey. Trey is originally from Augusta, Georgia, and that's where I had the privilege of meeting and working with him and loving on him. Trey has an extensive bio. If I went through all of this, you all will be like, oh my God. So I'm just going to pull out just a couple of things, a couple of very great things. Trey currently is the Director of Worship and Arts at Tabernacle Baptist Church, which is a historic church there in Augusta, Georgia. He oversees about 12 ministries and approximately 250 ministry volunteers. It's a lot of people, Trey. So we talked about that part, but Trey is an artist, an amazing singer. He is a composer. He is an educator. He is amazing. He's been places like France and Poland and Spain. He's been on tour with his group, Sounds of Zamar, and places like Portland and Seattle and Washington and Boston and Tampa and Jacksonville and everywhere. So he's just about touched everywhere that you can think of, right? This is Trey. Trey has been a very important part of my life, and we have been friends and family for about 10 years now. So, hey, Trey, thank you so much for being on here with me today. How are you?
Hey, all is well. I'm glad to be here.
Good. So we're just going to go ahead and jump into the conversation. And normally when I start these conversations off with my guests, I ask them the important question of who they are. And not who Trey McLaughlin is professionally, because, I did kind of talk about that. And trust me, you all, I had not barely touched or grazed over everything that Trey is. But I want to know who Trey McLaughlin is personally, because so many people get connected to their titles and they get lost in that. But if their titles ever got stripped away from them, then who are they? So tell me, who is Trey McLaughlin?
Um, I am, or Trey McLaughlin is Gail's son. First and foremost, I mean a child of God, of course, but Gail's baby. And a simple, optimistic kid from Augusta, Georgia, who is so glad that God made him black.
Oh, that is a powerful statement. So let's elaborate on that. You're so glad that God made you black. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I didn't know, as most children don't, that being black was considered a bad thing by society's standards. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, of course, I didn't see a lot of black people on television, other than the Cosbys and, a few others, but we didn't see a lot of black kids growing up on TV. But I would always sit in my mom's room. She had this chair in her room that I loved. I would sit on the chair,
Mm-hmm.
swing my legs, and talk to God. And this
Mm-hmm.
is like from as early as I can remember, and thank him so much for making me black. Like, thank you so much. Like, I could look like the people I see on TV, but you made me look like this. And how blessed and honored I was to look the way I looked. Not because I thought I was super attractive or anything, but just that
Mm-hmm.
my skin was brown. I felt like it made me unique. And I've always felt that way, and I still do.
That's amazing. I don't I don't too much remember seeing too many Black people on television either, besides the Cosbys
Hmm.
and A Different World, early 90s with when, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air came out. And
Hmm.
I think that was the first time. Well, no, because Claire was a lawyer
Hmm.
in Dr. Huxtable. And then we had, Uncle Phil was a lawyer, and
Hmm.
Aunt Vivian was an educator, a professor. So that's interesting that you bring that up. I don't really think I had that conversation with God, from a small age. I don't think I've ever really at that age given it that much thought. As you know, I
Yeah.
grew up in Chicago, so I
Hmm.
was around. I mean, it was just something that I didn't see as being special um, until I got older. So that's very
Yeah.
interesting that you caught that. What? Let me ask you this: when did you know that you were going to do what you're doing? Like, when was that moment when you decided I am going to be a world influencer? Because you are.
Oh wow.
When did you think?
Um, I didn't know exactly what I've always known I wanted to be a singer. And once I figured out that that's what I could do, and I'm talking about around that same age, like 4, when I
Mhm.
figured out that I could be a singer. And then, my mom worked at a college, so I was very familiar with the concept of higher education at a young age because of being around college students a lot. So when I found out that I could go to college for singing or for music, all of that, I never wanted to do anything else. But I remember being a little kid and around the same time having those conversations with God, and He's showing me that I was gonna do great things. I've always known that I was gonna be famous, or not necessarily famous, but I knew I was gonna be renowned for something when I was a kid, and I didn't know exactly how it would happen. But I just always knew it. I felt it, like in every step that I took in terms of making myself better or working on my gift or even working on who I am as a person has been toward that. And really ever since I can remember.
That's really good. So I'm gonna ask you, tell me what has been one of your greatest accomplishments.
Oh wow.
I mean, 'cause
Um,
you have so many. You really do. And I'm not even trying to be funny when I say that. You really do have so many. But if you had to choose one, what would that be?
Greatest accomplishment. Um, I would say that for the most part, I have kept a good name. I would say would be my greatest accomplishment. And
Okay.
that most people, if they speak of me as a person, cannot say that that most people who come in contact with me can say good things about me. And that's important, not just because of how people view me, but that's important because you want to know that you treat people well. Even
Right.
even if you're not perfect, because no one is. I got my share of stuff, but I think to be able to say that most people who have come in contact with me can say positive things about me as a person or that I didn't mistreat them. Um, I would say is the greatest thing because that's actually the most difficult thing to do when you're gifted because anything will make people view you in a light that may not be who you actually are because of how they feel about your gift.
Yeah, and sometimes you can't stop that,
Yeah.
because people's perspective, or just even how they see it is their reality, and it's not our responsibility to make anybody
Mm-hmm.
think any different about us, because it's their responsibility to either believe what they want to believe or find out the truth.
That's
So,
right.
it being anyone that's gifted runs into those situations. I'm sure you have. I know I have, where people just don't want to see you because they're afraid of what it is that you have, which is not your fault, right? A
Right.
gift is a gift, but I definitely have run into that.
I know you have. I've been there sometimes.
Listen, and you've had my back, so
Yeah.
we worked a lot together, and that is definitely like, okay, like it's a lot. But let me ask you this: what would have been the hardest crowd you ever had to face? Tabernacle, circa
Yes.
circa 2010.
Absolutely Tabernacle. Tabernacle was probably the first place that I came to, and you don't, as a gifted person, and most of us are pretty humble, or at least honest with ourselves about what we're capable of and what we're not. When you're good at what you do, you get used to a certain response from people.
Mm-hmm.
And so there have only been two times in my life where people's responses were just not what I expected. And it threw me off. The first time was in college. Um, I always been one of the best singers at my school.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you went out. I can't hear you.
There we go.
Oh,
Um,
I was like, no, where'd it go?
nah, somebody was trying to call me. But one of the best, I've always been the most gifted at music and wherever I was. So when I got to my college, everybody's the best in college. They're the best of where they came from. And the school I
Uh-huh.
went to was very competitive, which was good for me. I was here for it. I'm here for the challenge, but I'll never forget my voice teacher told me one day, he said, "Why don't you just quit school and work?" I was like, "What, bruh?" And basically he was like, "You're wasting your mom's money. No, and you're wasting the school's money, the government's money being here. Why don't you just quit school, get a job, work, and if you still want to take lessons, you can come in." Basically, he was telling me that what I felt like was my best wasn't good enough for him. He wasn't wowed by how I sounded. He wasn't wowed by my natural ability to sing classical music. He felt like there was another level that I could give and that I wasn't giving it because I've been so used to coasting off the fact that I'm good at it. That
Right.
was the first time. The
Mm-hmm.
second time was when I came to Tabernacle, which was under some circumstances that weren't my fault, but still some things where people had a preference for somebody else, and I was brought in to replace that somebody else.
I
And
was there.
people, yes, I know you remember, and people were missing him. They were like, Well, where's so and so and so? I mean, we don't really care what you got going on. Where is so and so and so?" And it took time. I had to literally build a rapport with the congregation at Tabernacle because they weren't just going to accept me off the strength of my gift. I had to literally prove who I was to them as a
Right.
person. So Tabernacle was definitely a hard crowd, but they got me ready for life and
Yeah.
for the adult world of entertainment, which is tough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, for the people that are watching that may or may not know where we are talking about the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church,
Oh
where
yeah.
the good doctor, Reverend Charles E. Goodman,
Oh yeah.
is the pastor. And just a little bit of historic information about Tabernacle. Tabernacle is a very prestigious church in Augusta, Georgia, and has been for over 100 years. So the history that this church carries is so strong that the
Mhm.
people that are there have this long legacy. And when you go into a place like that, when you step into a room like that and people have this expectation of
Hmm.
you, then that can be a very difficult crowd. I'm not telling you what I heard, I'm telling you what I know.
What I know.
What I know for a fact. Um, at one point, I was the youngest female minister there, and I got licensed when I was 25 years old. So I know, because I had a hard time, and it was just because you have to come in the door. But
Hmm.
just like you, they taught me so much and strengthened me so much that when I branched out and left and moved and and things like that and started doing other things, can't nobody tell me
That's right.
that I cannot do what I'm doing, because I made it there.
That's right. That's
Right.
right.
So when you said that Tabernacle kind of, helped you with, like, going out into life, tell me the type of things, like, because I remember when you were on your way to France and Poland and Spain, and how, everybody was like, oh my God, we were just so proud of you, because we knew that you were all that and then some, but just to have that international reach, I was so proud of you. Tell me how that was, from leaving from, I'm not saying that you were not traveled and you had not been anywhere, but when you think of Augusta, Georgia, is Augusta, Georgia. And before I moved to Augusta, I got tricked. I don't know if I ever told you this. I got tricked into moving to Augusta. I'm from Chicago. I wanted to
Mhm.
leave. It was just so much going on. And I called my uncle and was like, I want to move to Atlanta. He said, no, move to Augusta. I was like, where? Like, what's Augusta? It's the second largest city in Georgia. Me, I'm Chicago. I'm thinking city. I get to Augusta. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Augusta. I love Augusta. And I am not dogging Augusta, but Augusta was not the city that I had in mind, right? Like, I'm thinking big city. And I got to Augusta and was like, well, where's the rest of it? So a lot of people don't know where Augusta is. So from coming from Augusta and then going overseas internationally, how did
Mhm.
that affect you? Like, walk me through that process.
One, I think that even while Shanita, my manager at the time, well, she still is, but by the time she was negotiating it, I'm thinking this is not really going to happen. These people do not really want me to come over here. I think it was such a out of body experience. Even getting the offer seemed unreal in itself, but then also to be from Augusta, and you're right, like Augusta is not Hicksville, but there also isn't a lot here in terms of huge opportunities, and especially not then. Now there are way more since I've been able to do that, and I've tried to use my experience and influence to kind of open the door for other people from here to say you can do great things and be from
Right.
Augusta. But at first going over there was really unreal, and I also didn't realize the impact that my YouTube ministry had on people, not just in the United States, but people overseas were really, really um, getting involved and singing
Mhm.
my arrangements and stuff in a way that I never could have imagined. So the entire time over there was like an out of body experience. And then I think from then on, I was forever changed. One, because of the language barrier and getting to see the Holy Spirit work through that. And I mean, the meaning of the music was the meaning of the music. It didn't even matter what language the people spoke, but also just in terms of how the people responded to me is when I started to realize that for a lot of people, I'm not just Lil Trey, whose mama work at Payne College, who sang all the time, with the gap and the high booty. Right? that's that's how I feel like, that's who I am. But to those people, I was a symbol of free worship. And it was heavy, but at the same time, enlightening, and definitely changed how I view what I do. Because sometimes when we do it, we don't view it as special because
Right.
it's our gift, so we don't always see it as something special. But going overseas definitely changed that for me, and changed my concept of what I could become being in and from Augusta.
Yeah. And you gave a lot of people hope, and showing, the younger generation or whoever that they can do it. I remember telling you, I want to say this is 2013, because that was before you went
Hmm.
to,
Yeah,
you went
because I
over,
went in 2014. So yeah, it was 2013.
and you had an event that I had the pleasure of working with you, and I
Yeah.
had to have a conversation with you, and I told you that you're more than just Trey McLaughlin from Augusta, and you are to act like that in this concert. And I made you, I
Yeah.
made you act like that because I didn't want people to come and just treat you like you were just little Trey. I mean, I was
Yeah.
turning people away at the door. They,
I remember. You were so good too. I love it.
so for the people that are watching, Trey and I go back a long, a long, long, long way. So I had the privilege of working head of security. Don't let the cute
Hmm.
face fool you. I'm a thug on the inside. So um, I remember sitting down and telling you, and then even having Shanita sit down and say, "Listen, when the concert is over, you leave. Don't stop. Don't talk.
Hmm.
Don't do all this. I understand." And we had the little table set up and stuff like that for you. But
Yep.
to me, that's how I always viewed you. So it wasn't hard for me to be like, this is who you are. And I'm glad that those doors opened up, because when you left, you saw this is how they view you. You're
Yeah.
not just, Trey that can sing and, do shows and stuff like that. You are an international superstar.
Oh.
You really are. Like, just think about it. Like, think about all the things that you have had the opportunity to do, from being that little boy in the chair, swinging his legs,
Yeah.
to having over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, because I'm sure it's much more now. Remember when you got your button,
Hmm.
that the plaque on YouTube. I mean, people,
Yeah.
and you have substance in what you do, right? So it's not like you're doing, it's a lot of people that's out here doing, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. It is, I have to remind myself, but they're temporary. It's temporary um, fame. It's temporary touch. It's that temporary thing. There are videos on YouTube that you can go back and still feel the same way that you felt, when you first did it, or when I first
Yeah.
heard it, and things like that. So you're touching people around the world. So, and let's be a little bit more transparent. Do you ever doubt your gift? Do you ever be like, I don't really think I can really do this, or I don't want to do this anymore? Do you have those
Oh
moments?
yeah. All the time. All the time. Excuse me.
Oh,
It is I think that is something that all creatives face at some point, because we always have the temptation to compare our gifts to others, or to look at people who may not be as skilled as us at doing what we do, but are getting notoriety, or you see great opportunities coming for them. And it's not that you don't want it to come for them, because you want great things for other people, but at the same time you start to look at yourself and say, maybe it's not what I thought it was. Maybe it's not as as unique as I thought it was. And that happens a lot. I think it happens in cycles. As you
yeah.
experience your success, as you move forward and God gives you affirmation, you start to feel like, okay, I might be decent at this. And then, something happens and you start to feel like, man, well, maybe I'm losing it, or maybe it just wasn't as good as I thought it was. So, yeah,
Mhm.
that does happen from time to time.
So how do you bounce back from that? How do you use that as fuel to sharpen your gifts or to sharpen your abilities? Because you have to move from that point. You
Mm.
can't stay there, right? So you cannot stay there. I'm telling you that you can't stay there. So how do you move forward without me having to drive to Augusta?
I think that I'm a lot like that anime character, the Japanese animation cartoons. You have that one character that's kind of smaller than everybody else,
Mhm.
but turns out that within them is more strength than all these other people who seem more powerful, and they don't give up. So I am that character. It doesn't really even matter how I'm feeling about it. For
Mhm.
me, there is nothing else. So it's like at the end of the day, it's got to work. And God has given me the creative power, with my words, but also with my heart, to be able to manifest the things that I want, not just the things that He has for me. I feel like God gives us what He has for us, but I also feel like He gives us the power and the
Mhm.
will and the drive to manifest those things that we want that are within His will for us to have. So, um, I feel like that keeps me going, even when I feel like whatever it is not good. That keeps me going. And to be honest, most of the stuff that I am most known for, if you were to ask me about it, I would say it's not my best work. That's
Mhm.
not the thing that I put out and was like, yo, they gonna love this. The stuff that I feel like that about, people
Mhm.
have watched. The stuff I feel like, well, this is not my best, but it was sincere. And at the end of the day, as long as somebody's heart is touched and I put it out there, that's the stuff that God allows to multiply and take me into places, that I never thought that it would. So
Mhm.
even when I don't feel like I'm good enough, God says, boy, get your butt out there and do it anyway, no matter how
Right.
you feel about it. So I just keep going.
Yeah. And you don't have a choice. Hmm. Um, and I would venture to say, and I know this even true about myself, there are gifts that are on the inside of you that you haven't even tapped yet.
Hmm.
Like, like you haven't even tapped them yet. In a couple of years you'll look up and be like, I am doing what? Yeah.
Right.
Like, wow, like I never thought that I would be doing this, but I'm pretty darn good at it, right? So
Mhm.
you keep walking. So let me ask you this. Oh, let me see. When was the moment when you knew for without a shadow of a doubt that this was going to be your life? Like, how some people kind of double dutch in it, but when was the moment when you were like, you know what? This it. Like, this is all I'm going to do.
My first tour, and the first show was in Houston, Texas. This was in 2017. We left to go on the road. It's First of all, it didn't hit me until we got on the road. This is my tour. I'm not singing on nobody else's tour.
Mm-hmm.
The venues are paying me to come. It's not because I always thought that when I finally did get on tour, that it was going, you got to go through the Chitlin circuit first. So I was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be doing some ghetto tour where we in minivans headed to these different churches, and we gonna
Mm-hmm.
have to eat chicken afterwards in the fellowship hall. Like, just
Uh-huh. Within the stock
my
boxes.
you already know. So that was my vision for when I went on tour. But God has a way of upgrading everything. So didn't know that. The agency that represents me now, Opus 3, actually approached me
Mm-hmm.
about representing me, which is something they don't do very often.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the only gospel artists on that label. And let's put a pin there because we'll come back to that in a minute.
Okay.
But we get on the first tour, and the food is provided. Everybody is treating us like we're the talent. When you walk into something, the talent has food. There are dressing rooms for the talent. The
Mhm.
talent has sound checks. Everyone is super super helpful. They're asking what you want and how you want it. Like, it just was something that I didn't expect. I thought, even still, that it was my tour, that we get to the venues and they would be like, "Yeah, you lucky we having you here," because what I'm
Right.
saying. Like, that
Because
was
that
my
date was the only
view,
date we didn't have nobody. So here.
right? So now you get to be here because we like your agents or whatever. We don't really know you like that, but that wasn't it. The people who brought us because they wanted us there,
Mhm.
and it's like we stepped on that stage and the energy was just electric. The crowd was going crazy because they were there because they loved us. And
Yeah.
people had traveled from 2 and 4 hours away in Texas all the way to Houston just to see the show, and stayed after to hug on me and for me to sign stuff. And I think that day I was like, this is what I want to do, and this is my life. Because I toured every year after that. And the only reason I'm not gone as we speak, because
Uh-huh.
usually in October is I'm out, I'm
Yeah.
touring. The only reason I'm not gone is because Rona brought her behind in here and messed everything up. But
You acting up.
yeah, that was the moment.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good. Um, you said put a pin somewhere. Are we gonna keep that pin right there
Okay.
for right now? But I'm gonna ask you this because I mean I think we deserve it. I mean I would love to see it. When are you gonna do another virtual concert?
Well, that's actually in the works. So we the reason I haven't gone ahead and just put one on social media is because my agents are working really hard to figure out a way for me and the rest of my team to still be able to make money and do what we do in the midst of this corona thing.
I have
And
an
a
idea.
lot of that is going to be virtual, a virtual show for a lot of different venues. So until that's done, I wouldn't put out a complete virtual experience, but I
Mhm.
am going to be releasing some videos and stuff that we've recorded, just to keep people engaged and also just to give them something to inspire
Well, I have an idea, but that's for offline. Um, that's for offline because it's for you, it's not for everybody. But and I actually just saw something done, and I was like, whoa, I know somebody that can do that. Like, like I really think that can work. So we'll
Yes.
come back to that. So you put a pin on your record label, and you're being the only gospel artist on your record label. So talk about that.
Yeah, we had an experience of going to New York for the first time, on a tour, because Zamar has been to New York a couple of times, but this was our first time not having to drive ourselves up there, and not having to pay for anything because we're playing a show at the newly renovated Sony Hall, which is directly across the street from Hamilton in the Broadway area,
Mhm.
which was amazing. But
The light is beautiful, isn't it? Like everything about that area is like,
yes, it was
yeah,
just so electric. But
yeah.
we got there, and so my agents, Ben and Sarah and Ashlyn, who's a part of our team there, they invited us to the main office of their company, Opus 3, just to meet the staff and all of that stuff. And I'm thinking this is going to be a tour of the building, and it's going to be like, and right, and when you guys grow up, if you do really really good, then you'll get to be like this artist, or you'll get to meet these people. Because, to be honest, Opus 3 represents so many huge artists in classical music, in
Mhm.
jazz, just
Mhm.
overall. They represent a lot of really great people, including like the Alvin Ailey dance group. Like, it's so many great people
Yeah.
that are a part of that agency. And I didn't think, and I still don't always feel like we measure up or like I measure up, but I'm grateful. So we get there and they have this boardroom, like this conference room, and everybody is seated and sitting, company people, and they go around the table and introduce themselves and they have us sit down. There's an open spot at the head of the table. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking this is for the main guy, like the big boss of Opus 3 is coming to sit in this chair. And these
Mhm.
other three up here up front, because I had brought Shanita and like Arthur and Selena with me for
Mhm.
this. Um, these chairs, are for the other big bosses. And so
Mhm.
everybody sits down, but the seat at the head of the table is mine. That was my seat. They
Yes.
wanted us to sit up there. And then all the people who are introducing themselves, these are people who represent other really huge artists, yet
Mhm.
they took the time to come in and meet me and my team. And
Mhm.
they all were super kind and engaged. Every department came and introduced themselves. And then they all came to our show, like pretty much the whole company, with maybe the exception of a few, came to our show that night at Sony Hall. And I was so blown away because Opus 3 is such a great company and they
Mhm.
represent so many great people. They didn't have to give that kind of treatment to little old me and my brand, but they
Mhm.
did,
Yeah.
which speaks volumes of them as a company, but
Mhm.
also just speaks volumes of how God will place you in position and you won't even know that he's setting you up for something great. But he is. It was so much more than I could have hoped for or expected. I just thought we're going to get to tour this nice building and meet a few of the people and see where our agents work. But we got to meet the whole company that day.
Yeah.
And it was, and not a, we gonna just be nice to these little black kids type thing. That wasn't what it was. They were
Okay.
really interested in knowing us and already knew about us through our agents. So it was just mind blowing for me.
Oh, and you deserved it. You did. You do. You deserve it. Like this isn't even. You haven't even scratched the surface. You may feel like you scratched the surface, but you haven't. Like, and I really believe because me knowing you, it's your humility that keeps you there. Because so many people, you know, get a show at Larry's barbecue, and you can't do you can't do nothing about them after that show because they got to go up right after they release the new meal of the day. I don't know, but there are certain people that can't handle even a little bit. Their heads blow completely
Yeah.
up, and I really believe that you're being blessed so abundantly and will continue to be blessed abundantly is because you're relatable, you are humble, you are, you're not untouchable. Like, like some people, you get to a certain place, you can't call them, can't text them, can't get in contact with them, can't send a message in a bottle, a smoke signal, or
Mhm.
nothing to get them. And then you're like, well, what do you mean they were right next door?
Right.
Like, what are you saying? But I think that, with who you are, it's just gonna take you further. And I believe the humbleness is definitely going to, it's a good thing for you. So keep it. Please
I'm
keep
doing
it.
my best.
Or I will show up. So let me give you
I know you will.
so okay, so let's talk about what's going on right now. So this year we have completely slid into a lot of devastating things. Okay, so 2020 came in heavy and hard, like just tragedy after tragedy. We had Kobe Bryant, the other seven that passed tragically in
Mhm.
the helicopter crash. And then, we turn around, we look, and then we're in a global pandemic. And then we have Ahmaud Arbery get hunted down. And then we have, Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and all of these things that are happening, not to mention we're wearing masks now and we have the Black Lives Matter movement. And then we have, I mean, there's just so many things. How have you been able to cope emotionally and mentally with all of that? Because I know that I've had my moments where I've completely just I've cried. I've cried about what's going on in the world. I've cried about being a Black woman. I've cried for, my brothers. I've cried for just everybody. It can be really, really heavy on your heart. How have you been coping with that? Have you had a breakdown moment? Have you like been like, and wanted to go punch somebody? But like just for real, how have you been handling the 2020?
With great difficulty.
Okay.
Um, I think we're both creatives and we're both very sensitive to what's going on around us, even if it doesn't affect us directly or touch us directly. We're both very, very sensitive, and especially to injustice. We hate it. So
Uh,
um, that has been a difficult thing, and I think it's easy to slip into hopelessness because you know I think as a black man, I've watched people of other races that I viewed as good people
mm,
or that I thought would be able to understand why my life matters or
mm,
why it should matter or why I even have to say it.
right.
And to see people who I thought would be a little bit more sympathetic, even just because they knew me, change like that or not change, show them their true selves like
Mm,
that was definitely difficult on the social injustice side of it. And then on the pandemic side, to think that something could happen. My mother and my grandmother are older. They're very young and beautiful looking, but
oh,
they're
yeah,
older,
yes.
which puts me in a place. So now you're telling me that I can't go anywhere, but if I do go anywhere, I have to be careful because even though I might survive it, I don't want to bring that home to them,
Mm,
then my mom is still working. So she still goes into work. Um, and grandma can't stay in the house forever. So sometimes she goes a couple of places and that just the worry of all of that.
mhm.
Not to mention the fact that you don't want to yourself get sick and die, or maybe not get sick and die, but get sick and give it to somebody else and it causes them to go down. It's just a lot with
Yeah.
that. I think that as a creative person, it's easy to get swept up into the pit of despair, even as a believer. But
Yeah.
I have learned to figure out small ways that don't always involve music of finding peace, different hobbies. So I've started to try to get back into working out. Um, I've started to try to talk to my family more and friends who are not close just a little bit more because I'm a true only child. I'm a loner, so I
Mhm.
could not talk to people for 3 days. I mean, not say anything to anybody for 3 days, and I would be fine. I I would be okay. That's how I am. So, um, to make an effort to just be more um, vocal with the people that I love and to reach out or to reach back when they reach out to me because we've talked about how my phone can get overwhelming and it be so much going on, so many messages and so many notifications and so many things to do that I kind of tend to put it down and walk away from it when I
Mhm.
can. So just to be more mindful of that and to make meaningful connections has helped me. But also, I ain't stopped writing. So I've
Right.
been doing a lot of musical things to keep me occupied because that's my best way of expression. And then finding new ventures in music to
Yeah.
make things work during this time of pandemic and during this time of just so much social unrest. I think our art is the way that we can give people some kind of, even if it's temporary, solace from all of this.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's interesting that she said you can be in a house for 3 days because surprisingly or not, and you probably know this, I'm an introvert extrovert.
Mm.
So when I'm out, I'm out. But when I'm in,
Ian.
like people will ask, like, are you an introvert or an extrovert? I'm like, oh, I'm both.
Hmm.
And I'm okay with it. Like, have you talked? No, I'm in the house. Like, I don't really have to do nothing.
Hmm.
I'm okay. So that's interesting. Me being in the house during COVID, when we were on lockdown,
Hmm.
I was okay. Like I was okay. Like
Hmm.
as long as I had food, um, my brothers are here with me. I knew that they were good.
Hmm.
I got my space. Oh, I'm okay. I did a lot of binge watching. I did some
Yep.
unnecessary shopping and some returns once the stores opened back up. And you can't just be shopping online no more and, and thinking that's gonna fit. That ain't your life.
Nope.
No. So,
Yes, my curvy queen.
so you got to put that on and figure out that that's not gonna work. But yeah, you said it. Creatives, it's that struggle that
Hmm.
that break. Like it gets to be too much. And I
Hmm.
also like the fact that you pointed out is even as a believer, because I think people need to understand that just because you're struggling at this time, even if you are, because people are struggling in their finances, economically, emotionally, mentally, there have been a lot of things going on. So it
Hmm.
does not make you weak because you're struggling during this time. It's 2020. This is a year that nobody saw coming. So
Hmm.
when people pretend that everything is okay, oh, I'll be okay. I got God. Yeah, me too. But I'm gonna go in
Hmm.
my room and cry because I
Hmm.
because I'm struggling right now.
Hmm.
So it's okay not to be okay, but you just
Yep.
can't sit in that.
Can't stay
That
there.
no, you cannot stay there.
Can't stay there.
So let me ask you to go ahead and tell everybody how they can find the absolutely amazing Trey McLaughlin. Tell us your website. I want to know your social media so you can get a million more followers and things like that. So tell everybody what you have coming up and how they can contact you.
Well, they can find me on all social media as Trey McLaughlin. I don't play no games. I feel like God gave me this name for a reason. And so I use it as much as I can, but it's Trey McLaughlin on all social media and all platforms. My website is traymmusic.net, but if they type in traymclaughlin.com, I bought all them domains. So Trey McLaughlin dot anything is gonna bring you right to my website. So they can type in traymclaughlin.com and they will find me. Um, as far as projects coming up, again, we do have some virtual things coming. I actually have an entire album that's complete. I just got to figure out how I'm going to release it. So hopefully, the plan is to release at least two from that project before the end of this year, and
Okay.
then the top of next year to be releasing it. I'm calling it a mixtape, but it's entitled "Just as I Am," and it's coming
Mhm.
pretty soon. It's a lot of music that's different from what people normally would hear from me.
Okay.
Some of it you've heard because you the fam and you know me, but some of it is stuff that no one has heard. I haven't released it, I've been kind of screen testing it out while we were on tour. We play it before the show and
Mm-hmm.
we play it during intermission just to
Mm-hmm.
see what people would say. And
Mm-hmm.
people would be like, can we buy that music? Cause that sounds like you before the show started and during intermission. We kind of like that. So I got a lot of good feedback about that. So that'll be coming soon. And then next year, once my agents work out exactly what our new aim is going to be, there'll be some virtual things coming up from me, and hopefully a few online seminars, just because people are always asking me questions about my method for composition or how I teach voice and some other things. So a lot more social media stuff in the works. My Facebook artist page has been hacked. So I am not controlling that right
For
now.
a long time. Well, I'm going back on, of course, but who had what? When?
I don't know. I just know that somebody else has taken control of it and they locked me and Shanita out. So it's been posting crazy stuff and people have been inboxing me on other social media platforms because my personal Facebook page was linked to that one. So it's like because that one got hacked, I'm locked out of my personal Facebook page too. So it's
No.
just a lot of complicated stuff going on with Facebook. So anybody who is looking to add me on Facebook, hold off for just a little while until I just see if they're gonna give me my old one back or if I
Okay.
just need to start a new one. But Instagram is up and so is YouTube. I'm on Twitter and I'm also on TikTok. So if they want to follow me on any of the other social media platforms, I'm there and they can definitely reach me that way.
Okay. Well, I want to personally say that I am extremely proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm
Likewise.
not going to say nothing else because my thug get compromised and we don't have time for that. So I want to thank you for spending your evening with me in this conversation with greatness. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the people that watch this when it is aired and in the future is going to be great. So
Thank you so much for having me. You know I love you.
I love you too. All right, everybody. Till next time. See you later.